Hello everyone and welcome back to Talking Points with KPI. Today we have a very special guest, but first let's introduce the people at the table. We have the president, Erik, the director of strength, Dan Kabuling, and the director of wellness, Nick Hunenberg, here with us today. Also with us today we have the lovely gentleman at armcare.com, Ryan Crotin, the vice president, and Jorden Oseguera of High Performance, director of High Performance, So whoever would like to go first, please introduce your guys' self and explain what you guys do.
Get in there.
All right. Well, I'll try to make this quick. I'm Ryan Crotin. Academically, I'm a biomechanist and exercise physiologist. Just put out a long LinkedIn message, gave people a little personal insight in terms of my grueling PhD work, but always been interested in fatigue-based science as it relates to throwing athletes and their derivations of poor performance, compensation, and injury. Worked in Major League Baseball for 10 years. I could go through a whole rap sheet of the things I did, but my last position with the Angels was a director of performance integration. I oversaw strength and conditioning. I oversaw sports science. I oversaw injury epidemiology, and I was involved in tech integration on the sports medicine side. And I also was in charge of the proprietary combines that we put on for our MLB team and looking at physical metrics to see and project future performance and health. And now I'm the vice president of armcare.com. I got into this dynamometry space. I love arm strength. I talk about it a lot. Strength matters most. That's our message. And this company had a portable solution. Working in pro ball, it's super expensive. The stuff that's out there is like, the thing we had was $15K at each level, and we were missing data points on the road. So we needed a solution on the road. And I saw this product. I said, man, this is awesome. I talked to them, samples at 100 hertz, love the president of the company, and then they made me the VP. So that's what I'm doing now at armcare.com.
Awesome. Jorden?
Jorden Oseguera, pitching coach by trade, not quite as academic as Ryan. So I kind of take all Ryan's, theory and his practice and all the ideas he has and try to find a way to fit it into making it into a baseball schedule, if that makes sense. So that's kind of how we work together on a lot of the things. That's how we work together a lot with the Angels. We worked together for about 5 years with the Angels together, Ryan. And then, prior to that, I was in the collegiate coaching aspects as well as the private side of things. Doing a little bit of 3D motion analysis, dabbling a little bit in dynamometry there. So between, me and Ryan, we probably have over 20-ish years combined of dynamometry experience. A lot of data on it, and then combining all that with the arm care aspects, we've been kind of refining that process and chiseling away some of the stuff that's not usable from a player or a coach standpoint, and really diving into how to use that dynamometer information on the day-to-day basis for player development, health, velocity gains, really anything you can think of from a baseball standpoint.
Awesome. Thank you guys very much for joining us. So for those of you who don't know or might not know and have not been on our social media why this podcast has come to fruition, KPI and armcare.com have entered into a partnership to make an official armcare.com performance lab at KPI. So that is our mission and our goal here at KPI, is to make our performance lab armcare.com based. So for us, talk about how the athletes serve and how our process getting to this point with the armcare.com program.
Well, we have about 400 athletes that train at KPI, and we're constantly looking for ways to objectify the process and take opinion out of the equation, take the gray area out of the equation, and be able to determine yes or no on almost anything that we do in here. And so arm care was one of the ones that we have a passion about. I think this whole thing is built on the concept of arm care, what we've done at KPI, but we haven't found a way to quantify arm care. And we've, Dan and I have been talking about this for years. How is this going to come? And then this product came about. I stopped by these guys' booth after Ryan's talk at ABCA last year, and we did the little demo team product, 1 sensor, 10 profiles. And then, we started small with it. We started on a small group of pitchers, and we've been testing it since last February internally. Hired Nick in June, and Nick really kind of took the reins as director of wellness, and he got certified and started communicating with these guys. And we've slowly scaled up, and then it was at the point where we're like, you know what, this is a great product. This is a great system. We've had 100% health rate on the guys that have used this whole time, and these are our hardest throwing guys. These are high school guys throwing in the low to mid 90s, and so then we kind of start to talk to them about different ways we can integrate together, and then it kind of just one thing led to another, and here we are.
Sweet. So before I jump back over to you guys, Erik mentioned it a little bit, and you and I have touched on it before, but he's talking about vetting out the system. A lot of companies and a lot of things, they kind of just jump into something that they like. Like Erik said, he went to the demo, saw what it was, liked it, but did not fully jump into it right away. Wanted to see if it would work for the KPI program. Talk about how you and Nick kind of came together to make it symmetrical with what we're doing here.
Up until this point, we've had an arm care system, right? It was a test and retest model, taking in information from the athlete, injury history, their playing history, what they're currently doing. Then a movement screen, trying to gather information there, and then figuring out, okay, really it started simple. Are you a loose athlete or are you a tight athlete? Do we need to give you more range of motion? Do we need to give you more stability? And then across the board, they all need to get stronger.
Yes.
That is a core, and why I really do love this system is strength is the most important piece. Almost every kid that comes in here, they want to do bands, they want to do weighted balls, they want to do long toss. If you do not have the strength to handle the stress of throwing, that's always the limiting factor. And the process that's been sold to all of us to this point was, no, it's mechanics. You need to work on your throw mechanics. So just a lot of things fell in alignment with our philosophy. And then I think the big thing for me was finding and offloading the responsibility to a person, and then also an objective tool. No different than our force plates in the weight room. Finding ways to truly track an athlete, assess where they're at, put together a plan, and then make sure that they're actually getting better. I think that vetting out process is extremely important to us, and it is very strategic because we care a lot about our clients. We want to make sure what we're using is actually going to help them. We're not just putting money into something and then it becomes a paperweight sitting in the office. Mm-hmm. Like, I make a joke about some of the tools that are out there where they just end up in people's garages and they're never used ever again.
For sure.
We want our tools to be easy to use, quick, give us data, and then also it influences our programming. Actually shows up, and athletes know, oh, hey, today, based on my numbers, here's what I'm doing. And this has been a really, really easy tool to implement.
Yeah. So, Ryan, I'll jump over to you now. So, from the beginning, obviously you said you've had many different hats along the way, but now up to vice president. I want you to think back to when you first started this. What programs and populations were you guys trying to serve, and how did you see your product being able to help at any age and any level?
Yeah, I guess like the first thing is we understand the trickle down approach for having a major league user base as well as large Division I colleges. So that we understood the marketing tactics around that to service that community. However, the greatest baseball population are in amateurs, okay? And the amateurs don't get the same amount of attention that a pro or college team would, as far as the sports science integration, the monitoring, the multi-dimensional shareholders helping the athlete in their performance. And so, that had been the big focus. And honestly, for the technology, it was a bit of a challenge because it had to be upper level for somebody like my background in sports science with some heavy data analytics and what are the exports that come out of this thing. And it took a lot of work for us to get it to a level where the major league consumer really likes it. And it definitely meets the expectations for college, but it also had to be put in a place where, the athlete can understand the data and they can do this on their own, and they can understand what are going to be the training approaches to go from there and protecting their health and performance. So, it's interesting because we're just looking at baseball, right? But there's softball, there's cricket, there's tennis. We haven't even dove into those other sports. Fighting, there's so many applications of anybody that has an upper body performance element to their sport. But our whole key was, okay, what is the data psychology? All right. Can we meet the level of the skeptics like Jorden and I? We really I think with Jorden, us sitting back and people presenting technology to us in the major league level, I would say that for a lot of companies, we were a-holes because we did not want to bring in something that didn't have the strength of the data, the depth of the data, and wasn't either valid or wasn't reliable. That was a big thing. So we had to make sure that happens, and that we meet those expectations. But for us, with the other consumer and their data psychology, how does this 12-year-old or 13-year-old relate to this? What needs to be turned up? What needs to be turned down? What's the color scheme we use? How are they notified that they need to take a test, to create accountability? So there were a lot of things that went into this. I mean, you look at this, it's a small dynamometer, and now you got this app, and it's on your phone, and you might not think, how much level of sophistication has gone into this, but our president Dugan started this in 2020, just kind of started slow. There were 500 athletes. And then I was hired in 21, and then I hired Jorden essentially. And now we're at 8,000, using this. And we have very limited technical questions, which is good. And we almost don't get any emails from players. So they know it's pretty implicit, which is great. So, it's been a long journey. And I'm just excited for where we're at because we're appealing to so many people.
Yeah. So Jorden, before we move on, I want you to talk about your entry kind of into this thing. So you mentioned that, and granted you have got the knowledge to run the data and be able to be in the position that you're in. But when you first got into this, how was the simplicity, like Ryan was talking about, how did that elevate your game and able to understand what you were going into?
Yeah, so, as Ryan kind of touched on a little bit, it was something that Ryan and I were doing for, we had, starting with the Angels, probably about 3 years with the Angels of dynamometry data, right? Somewhere in there.
Yeah, almost, yep.
And I know we have one of our podcasts out too, where we were talking about how we kind of got into the dynamometry stuff. And I remember, there's one day me and Ryan are sitting there talking, and he's talking about using the word dynamometer. I could barely even pronounce it at the time. And then he showed me what it does. And I'm like, oh, I know what that is. Yeah, I use that with, we have a couple research things that we do with that through the NPA, and here's this and that. And then all of a sudden it was this jumping off point to where Ryan was able to take the stuff that, was started, probably 15 years ago at that time, and then layer on and make it more complex, but simplified at the same time. And then I was able to take that information that Ryan was taking, all these correlations and, causations, whatever the science terms are, Ryan knows those. But I was able to take those and put them into throwing programs and put them into, the communication with the affiliate coaches and the players themselves, and just say, hey, your strength is up, do more. Your strength is down. Let's do a little bit less today. You were actually scheduled for a no throw. Your strength is off the charts. Let's do a little bit. Let's not waste this development day when we're ready to do so. And then obviously Ryan kind of helped me start getting into those communication aspects of, hey, this guy has, scaption issues. Let's add in some more straight lever eccentrics and start hammering some of that stuff out to really boost that strength where we need it. And really cleaning up the communication is where it's really helped on my end, because now everyone speaks pounds. They speak strength. They're not speaking, well, he told me, he said he felt good. Well, I've sat in a bullpen. I've pitched professionally in all the crappy leagues that you don't want to be in. And when a manager or a pitching coach asks you, hey, how do you feel today? I'm always, I feel great. And then when he leaves the bullpen, you go, I really hope they don't ask me to pitch today because I feel awful. So with the actual data, with the information, it takes out the guesswork. It takes out, the coin flip of who's my best option today. You're able to look at the information and go, this is the number one on my card because he's going to fit the situation and he's recovered. And if he's not, then this is my number one on the card for the day. So from not just the private side of things, but even more importantly from the team aspect of things, because my biggest thing is when that player leaves an institute like KPI and they fold into their university or their minor league organization or whatever it is, now there's a consistent talking point to where they can fold in there. And that's the thing is you don't want your athletes going back to whatever org it is, university, and they get hurt because now that's going to be, oh, well, it's a reflection on you. Everyone's looking to point the finger, but if everybody speaks strength, then everyone's on the same page and we're pulling on the same rope as opposed to trying to have that tug of war against each other. I don't know if that made sense, but.
No, absolutely. So now we're going to move on, but it's funny how we, on prior podcasts of ours, our basic talking point is that all of the coaches have the same communication. So it's nice to hear that that you guys are able to get new employees, but able to still have an understanding of where that communication needs to be at all times to run a successful business. So it's very nice to hear that we have those certain things in common. So we'll go to the problem. So this is a question for our table. We have been trying to solve the day-old question of arm care for a while. Hiring Nick, I'll let you answer this question. How have you seen, not only with the introduction of armcare.com, but how have you seen these athletes progress towards it, and how have you seen it help KPI as a whole?
Sure. So one big thing that this product has really offered is it's allowed us to be a lot more proactive than reactive when it comes to our athletes in-house here. So the fact that we can be so objective and be able to make decisions on a daily basis or even on a weekly basis to consistently give them the best that we can offer has been huge for them. And so whether they're healthy or unhealthy, whether they're in season or out of season, we really have a great guide on how we can manage these athletes and monitor them and really watch their fatigue and develop that mantra of strength matters most. And that's actually helped them quite significantly push the velo, push the command, and really push the health. So.
Yeah. And so now, Ryan, I'll jump it back to you one more time. So hearing that, now I want to know, what was the goal of the program, and how was it a step towards combating the arm care epidemic we are experiencing today?
I mean, that's a loaded question, but I mean, the way we look at things is that we're in a world with available data, and we're able to get data quite easily at a low cost that's highly reliable and accurate in certain products. And so we need to, as coaches, be focused on creating programs to meet the athlete's needs and not have them meet ours, And so, the biggest thing is we always say, like, another one of our mantras is generalization equals hospitalization. And I don't mean to go to loss aversion all the time. In our brains, obviously, nobody wants to get hurt, but it's big. That's a big deal for what we do. And I believe 100% of injuries are caused. There's no luck. I can't stand hearing that. I used to hear it. Pro ball, sort of Jorden, oh man, it was bad luck. Player steps in a pothole on a practice facility. That is not bad luck. That's a mistake of the training staff and not securing the area. There's causes. But the main cause that's happening in baseball everywhere is that we are not making the determination between whether an athlete is fatigued, whether they have inhibited recovery, or they're weak. Okay? It drives me nuts because it's happened everywhere. So the issue is, if we're just doing one test a month, we're not going to really know how to create an individualized program. That's not suitable. The testing platform has to have a screen, it has to have a test, and it has to have an exam. The screen is daily, and that can be a variety of things. For us, it's our arm primer. Your test is weekly. Okay, your daily screen, that indicates what's your workload change on the day. Now, your test is a weekly examination that's going to allow you to know what is the functioning in a small subset of data that's needed. Okay, and that is where we start making a programming change that's acute. You have to select a test that you can fix in 10 days. All right. Now, on the flip side, you need an exam. The exam is something super thorough. It takes time. That might be something that's longer than 12 minutes. Ours is under 12 minutes. We do a bilateral strength exam of the throwing arm to know whether the athlete has central nervous system fatigue or peripheral. Central if we have it in two arms. Okay, peripheral means throwing arm only. It's a big difference in terms of the training and the things you need to do. But the collective approach to understanding the screen, the test, and the exam is what's going to allow you to make both short-term improvements, okay, and long-term gains. And the whole thing is really being able to customize this data effectively. Or else, if we don't know the spectrum of fatigue-inhibited recovery or being able to use the screen, test, exam, we could overtrain a fatigued athlete, or we could undertrain a weak athlete. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, we need to get better at that. I think the entire world, it doesn't even matter if it's baseball, whether it's soccer or it's football or something else, your testing strategies have to follow that plan so you don't miss observation, but you're constantly giving the athlete individualized attention, and it's ongoing. Now, the key is the difference between this company, and I look at other companies too that do, monitoring. The advantage is it's player-led. That means that you can get a ton of data and you're not absorbing costs of, someone on your staff. Can you imagine you guys have like 15 or 16 kids training, some come in at different times, and you got a block, let's say it's 90 minutes, and then two of your coaches have to watch an athlete or man a computer or look at a spreadsheet or text a shared sheet to somebody that's highlighted in colors. Oh, you forgot to conditionally format one. It's a useless process. So for me, and I don't mean to be so fired up, but I'm so passionate about this because our educational message is like, man, we got to do better. We have to do better. We have to know the athlete's body better, not movement, not ball characteristics. I don't care about that. Jordan and I, we are focused on innings pitched. If there is no player on the mound, there is no data that matters. Who cares about where his foot is on the rubber or the timing of when he has peak knee extension or the spin rate or spin efficiency does not matter, because we need to keep the guy on the mound. And that comes from individualized training, always.
Yes. So that's a perfect segue to talk about how we have been integrating it and how we have had success with your product. Nick, Dan, Erik, whoever feels free, talk about how, since we have implemented this system, how we have had 100% health rate, like you said, and our pitchers from our social media are getting extremely better. Talk about how you guys have seen that.
Well, we started with what we call our Pitchers Concierge program. So these are our high school guys that are handpicked, that are best guys, that we, not only the highest performance guys, but also the guys who have the best work ethic. We know that they'll do the work. And it was a group of about 10 that started this in the spring, and we ran them all the way through the spring doing this twice a week. And then in the summer, once Nick got here and he was able to kind of, like Dan said, assign someone to it, we started to integrate more of the upper level guys into this. And then now we're at the point we're going to kind of scale way up with this, but it's been 100%. We've had 100% health. When we combine this product with our internal protocols for arm strengthening, using the Proteus now for scapular stability, and then having Nick's treatment with all of the above has kept this population that has used this product in the last 6-7 months in this facility 100% healthy. This is also the population that's supposed to get hurt. The whole adage out there is that the harder you throw, the more likely you are to get hurt. There's some correlation there, but we don't think it's causation. Like we feel like we can increase velocity and keep guys healthy if it's done the right way, and we're proving it right now with the integration with arm care.
Yeah,
I think the building off the problem piece, like this is a complex problem. It is not simple. It's not pitch counts. It's not resting your arm. It's not icing. It's not this simple fix. It is complex. And then you add it with a 13, 14, 15, 16-year-old child, it becomes exponentially complex. And I think solving this problem in the youth population is going to make the sport better, because we're going to have more athletes basically surviving high school and travel ball. Because right now it's a 50+% chance that you're going to quote unquote fail and get injured as a youth player.
Yeah.
And then those numbers are only getting worse. And so I think individualization is a core of what we do here. And it's something we've done since the beginning. We're going to individualize your warm-ups. We're going to individualize your throwing, your lifting. We're going to adjust on the spot. And I think adding more and more tools to help athletes see, okay, hey, what should I do today? And then objectifying that, like the question, I've been thinking about this a lot, like, hey, how do you feel today? Every single kid's going to say good.
Yeah.
And the answer to, hey, how do you feel today is, hey, do you want to play baseball today?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I want to play baseball today, so I'm going to say good. And so I think putting and normalizing this process where, like, we're in this scaling up phase right now. We're getting the athletes to the point where, like, yeah, hey, you're going to run this on your own, and upping the ante and giving responsibility to the athletes. That's another big core principle of what we do here. Like, you need to take ownership of your arm health. Mm-hmm. You need to take ownership of what's going on. And when something goes great and you hit a PR and you're throwing 95, hey, that's on you. You get to pat yourself on the back. And when things go wrong and you get hurt and you hurt yourself, like, that's on you. We, on our job as KPI and as these outside entities, is to provide resources and feedback and data and information so that you can make the best decision. And I think This problem is complex, and that's why it needs to have more people. It's not going to be solved by one person or one entity. It has to be this joint effort between all facility people and coaches, high school, travel ball professional, like all of us working together to make sure the athletes are staying healthy. So
for sure.
Yeah.
So I'll jump back to you, Jordan and Ryan. So you've now integrated this system. You now have traditional approaches to arm care with cords, therapy, strength programming is now put into this new system and test each athlete, like you talked about, in a specific individual way. Do you guys happen to have any success stories like of that nature that you guys would want to share?
Take it over, man.
We have a couple good success stories. So a couple of them, there's some of them with names we can't really use yet, obviously, but from my standpoint of it, we had one kid, he's actually at a Division III right now. Ryan got me connected with him. His name's also Ryan Parise out in Pennsylvania. He came to me, chronic elbow issue, 3 MRIs, or was it 4? I don't remember.
He's had problems.
It was 3 or 4 MRIs. He was insistent that he had something was wrong. Every single one of them. There's no structural damage. Everything looks good. We got him on the arm care system. He gets tested out, extremely weak, extremely imbalanced. And you say one of those things like, oh, traditional with the bands and stuff like that. I don't even want to say it's traditional because we use heavier resistance. For whatever reason, correct me if I'm wrong, Ryan, again, you're more of the science side of it than I can even really comprehend, but muscles need to have some extra stress added to them to gain strength. If you add weight onto a squat appropriately, you're going to get stronger quads and glutes and so on and so forth. But then all of a sudden people look at the shoulder and they go, it needs to be like -5 pounds. Go ahead and grab these feathers and move these 1,000,000 times. And that's what's going to build a whole bunch of shoulder strength. To the best of my knowledge, the shoulders still follow general muscle rules. So we try to condition it with that. So I can't even say we're like traditional in what it is we do, but we do like to stress that shoulder appropriately. And that's what we did is he got into the system. He started using those heavier resistance bands, using the heavier plyo balls for that stabilization work. And next thing you know, we see the strength bump up. And then all of a sudden we're tracking it in the app. He goes from a 4 every day on how his arm feels to a 6, to a 7, to an 8. So now he's always a 9 or a 10. So we got him out of pain. He's able to compete through a full season, finishes his junior year. Then it's like, okay, we've got through that. Let's check that box. We get into the next phase. Now he goes from throwing 77. I think I talked to him a couple days ago. I think he topped out at 87 the other day. So he's getting more velocity. He's throwing strikes. He got committed to a university on a thing that was like, hey, I can't even throw a baseball without discomfort. So that was one of our really awesome success stories. Now hopefully listens to this and he'll gain a little bit of weight and start throwing in the low to mid 90s. But that was all just with arm strength, like he weighs 155 pounds. He's 6'2", 6'1", somewhere in there. And just by getting his arm stronger, he added on 10 miles an hour and he got out of pain. He's able to play the game that he loves instead of having that kind of taken away from him because he was going to the doctors. Hey, there's nothing wrong with you. You're structurally intact. But nobody was testing his strength. So we started testing that strength and we found a great aspect of it there. And then one of my favorite ones, I've told this story probably 1,000 times now, but we had a player who's pitching in the NL Central in the 2021 year. He's been in the big leagues with 3 or 4 teams. So it's not that he isn't ready to go to the big leagues. He's been there. He's an up and down guy. He's on the arm care system. I've known him for a good chunk of time. And this organization, due to the COVID policy, said you have to go back-to-back in AAA before we'll even put you on the big league roster. So he pitches on a Friday, throws 27 pitches. They tell him on Saturday, he comes in there for, the mid-afternoon game. They go, look, we need you to pitch today. Are you good to go? So he shoots me a text and he goes, hey, they said I need a pitch tonight or I can't get put back on the 40-man. I said, well, do an arm strength test because I can think of about 650,000 reasons for you to say you're good to go at this point, So he goes in there, he does his arm strength test. On back-to-back days, he's actually up by about 1.5 pounds, 2 pounds, somewhere in there. So I tell him, look, you better tell him you're good to go to post. He goes, but I'm crispy. I don't feel good. I said, feel versus real. Your data's telling me you're good to go. Next thing you know, 72 hours later, he's back in the big leagues. League minimum is a lot better than anything you're making not on the 40-man. So it would use that data to not only improve player development, but even at those higher levels, we're able to tell guys, look, you can go 2 days in a row, 3 days in a row, 4 days in a row, if your body's ready for it. And the only way to do that is through consistent testing. And, on some of the, what I'll call them success stories, is they're not success for others, but it's success for the validity of testing this stuff, is we have these other groups that they say, we don't want to use your training because we think it's too much resistance. So I said, that's fine. You don't have to use our stuff. But what I want, just keep testing, keep testing, keep testing. So they're hammering it out using those quote unquote traditional arm care methods. And they're seeing, they start here in spring training. All of a sudden, a month in, they're down in strength. Then they're down in strength again. They're down in strength again, injured list. We've had this happen with 15, 20 guys. And I go, well, what are you guys doing for your arm care? Well, we're doing this, we're doing that. I'm not going to say what it is, but everybody knows what it is. We're doing these traditional light bands, light dumbbells, all these things. And we're going, well, this guy throws like 97 miles an hour. What you're doing is you're taking this guy that throws 97 miles an hour, you're taking off these new tires with this great tread, and you're putting on bald tires and saying, let's go hit the Indy track and see what happens. We need to condition the arm appropriately. And you need to gain strength throughout the season. You're not there to break even. You're not there to get weaker. And if you're in any of those last two categories, you're probably not going to compete consistently at a high level. So again, there's a couple, 3 different little viewpoints of it, of some of them that bought into our system and really had a good aspect of it. We have a lot more than that. And then also from the other side that said, we just want to assess, but they just assessed guys going down the drain and then wondered why these guys are getting weaker when, we look at the throwing arm. And again, I'm going on a tangent now. Ryan just went on one, and we look at the throwing arm and we say, we never need to change the pre-throw activation. We never need to change our post-throw. Day 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, it's all the same for the next 365 days of the year. It's all the same because this will just work. There's no other conditioning program, whether it's periodization or, German volume training, anything that says you can do the same thing every day and you're going to gain strength over the course of the year. There's going to come that point of neural stagnation where your body just goes, hey, we're used to this. Let's grab our 5-pound dumbbells or our 2-pound dumbbells, lay on our side and do our external rotation. That's what's going to help us. At a certain point, that's not enough. Maybe for a new guy who's untrained, who's never done those things, but we need to add variation. And the only way we can know when that guy's ready for variation is, get him on the dynamometer. You have to test him out. And in talking with Nick, with your guys' group, he understands it. He gets like, hey, when do we add in variation? When can I add in some new stuff? I've seen some of your guys' social media posts. And that's why it's a no-brainer to say you guys are an arm care performance lab or whatever the exact verbiage is. I got a short memory. So, you guys are obviously one of those flagships that's doing things right.
Can I just jump in on the training? Guys, is that okay?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So, a lot of times when I go into major league teams and it's no fault of their own, they're so busy. Major league people, because we've been there, Jordan and I, you are so busy. We're talking 80 hours a week in the off season. If you're a director, even if you're a strength coach, mostly you're going to put in 40 hours. Okay. You might do a split routine on Monday, Tuesday, and then a Thursday, Friday, and Wednesday, you might have a light day, but you're working a job, The issue is the information on the outside of the game is moving so fast constantly. You guys are producing great stuff. Driveline, top velocity, tread, like all this stuff, our customers, they're firing out new insights, new information. It's happened quickly. And so, on my side of things, my frustration was exactly what Jordan said, was the monotony of training. And to me, a lot of it looked like rehabilitation. Okay. When I watched it, nobody gripping anything, cuff weights, 5 pounds, didn't even matter if it was a sport specific movement. They're not getting enough activation. And a lot of, like, when I see cuff weights, to me, unless it's Mike Marshall, and if you look up some of his stuff on YouTube, which is nuts, it's not training with that thing, with cuffs. It's not strength training. It's a warm up, right? The other thing, and no offense if this is part of your program, guys, but now you're going to get the education. Light dumbbells, okay? Really not a good choice in the sense that people don't know the forces on the shoulder, all your muscles that have to compress your shoulder at ball release in the most vulnerable position is over your body weight, okay? So I weigh about, let's just say I'm 100 kilos. I weigh 900. So my weight is 981 newtons, right? But I throw 90 miles an hour, and I have 1,000 newtons of force to hold my shoulder together. Yet we're giving players a 3-pound dumbbell to train. We're not appreciating the laws of co-contraction. All right, I got a book on my desk. Let me grab it in case there's like people in the audience that want to see it. This book, if you can see it, Strength. It's Franz Bosch's book. Okay, talks about muscles that hang, muscle slack. Okay, in the course we go into this in deep detail, but we talk about the importance of maximum recruitment. We talk about max force, but we also talk about max recruitment. But there's certain stages in the throwing delivery that the arm is isometric, and that takes the slack out of the muscles. It takes the slack out of basically the tendons, okay? It sets things up to explode. It sets things up to slow the arm down so you don't have extra bending at the elbow and opening it up. But the training, it's high level, you know? In a lot of the times, like you look at a player's face when they do arm care, if they're not gritting their teeth, that ain't arm care, okay? You know, it's just not. That's a warm-up, okay? And the other thing that I think is important for us to know as a society, okay, we need to do more overhead work. We need to do more work and long lever. You know, I see a lot of guys, you know, they're standing. I don't know. It's gonna be hard for me to see, but they're standing. They got a towel roll under their armpit to protect the axillary blood supply under the armpit. Okay, we don't do anything down here. Even a side armor is like this. He's in abduction. All right. We need to focus more on getting the arm up, and we need more long lever. Remember, I told you the forces are the highest at ball release over body weight. Okay. Athletes are generally weak there. They are weak. Some of the education that people bring us on site, Jordan and I go through a ton of stuff. We give personal stories just like this, but it gets to the point where we talk about exercise and we talk about the do's and the don'ts. You can do anything with them, but you have to have a certain combination that works. Most of your training needs to be overhead, in my opinion, okay? There are some rotator cuff-based training, but like when we use our bands, my favorite's the Victory, my favorites are the ATYT, anything that's outstretched because I know I'm weak there. And the other thing is that there's a strong correlation, we're seeing this too in our data, between scaption strength to raise your arm and external rotation strength. Okay? There's a strong correlation there. We can also manage any kind of potential imbalances. And a lot of these arm care programs that you see in baseball are posteriorly dominant. I'm sure you guys have gone through different iterations of training. And when you look at the combination of programming, most of your training is on the backside of the body. I would say, it would be fair to say, and maybe Jordan would agree, 90% of the training in the throwing athlete is on their back half. Okay? Yes.
I would agree with that, yeah.
So the issue is the Tommy John surgery is the epidemic. We don't see shoulder injuries as much. If we do, the slap tear is catastrophic. But a lot of those are prevented by having great eccentric internal rotation strength. But you got to test it, right? So that's another thing too, is this getting on board. And the other thing too, when people give me programs, they're arm care programs, and how they fit with their strength programs. You know where they put the arm care programs? Jordan, where do they put the arm care programs in the strength program? Where do we put it? Even
it's typically the last thing you do before you leave the stadium. It's just a box checker. It's at the end of the day. It's done at like midnight in an affiliate, 11:30, and the guy's like, let's just say, all right, let's go home.
You want to know what? It's a bingo right there. It's a what do you guys call it? Well, I used to call them finishers, right? In my mind as an athlete, when we say and we put it on a piece of paper, here's your finishers. For the athlete's like, okay, I'm ready to go out the door. Okay, unless it's biceps training, and that's something that we talk about and something we put into our on-site education about how to do appropriate bicep training for throwing athletes. But that, to me, that gets guys excited, and they're a little bit more inclined to want to do some arm work. But I mean, shoot, man,
Yeah, typically everywhere I've gone, guys are doing their arm care and they can do it on their phone with their pink dumbbells.
Oh yeah, man.
They're usually on their phone watching something and doing their pink dumbbells before they got to get out of there.
And the other thing that's so frightening, and Jordan, like you were mostly on the field in the dugout, right? I was in the dugout and training, overseeing our strength coaches who are phenomenal at the Angels, training our pitchers, our starters, as soon as they came out of the game. We got them hot, and we made the mistake. We put arm care at the end of the lift. They really weren't wanting to do it. It was a half-ass effort. But here's the frightening thing, all right? Now, you're focused on this starter as a strength coach if you are afforded the opportunity to leave the game with them. And guess who comes in after that reliever, right? Now, there's one strength coach, one starter that you're focused on their training. Reliever comes in, and the athletic trainer's in charge of arm care. Where are they? They got to be out on the field, right? You're working with an athlete, trainer out on the field, reliever comes in and he's got arm care. Guess what? Most times it's not done. There's nobody watching him. He says, well, I'm going to skip this. I'm going to hit the spread. I'm going to take a shower. I'm going to get ready to go. I'm going to see my girlfriend tonight. I don't want to spend the extra time. So the lack of prioritization of the most essential training is not there, okay? The other thing, and I battle this a lot, even myself, and I don't want to come across like everybody's wrong, I'm right, because that's not true. The reason why we know certain things is that we screwed up, right, Jordan? Mm-hmm. We made a lot of mistakes, okay? We're trying to help people not to make them. And
we know what doesn't work more than we know what does.
Totally. And a couple of things that are the problem, you speak to different people in different communities. You got the pitching coach community, the strength coach community, the medical community. Medical community, range of motion is king. Strength coach community, all right, strength is king, okay? But the pitching coach, they know arm strength is king. And we talk about a ground up, kinetic chain approach to training. We talk about kids' hits. We talk about their posture, all those things. But when it comes down to things, these kids are getting hurt because their arms are weak. That's it. Like we got to think about it intuitively. His ankle mobility, okay, maybe there's some transfer issue. If he doesn't dorsiflex, doesn't get enough propulsion, maybe he's got a restriction of inversion, eversion. But the whole key why people are getting hurt is that their arms are weakening. Now, is it a component to cause that weakness? Maybe. But I do think this world, man, we got to focus on arm-specific strength. It has to be a priority.
I want to build off that. I feel like the population that we see within our building, like we'll have athletes who are 18 years old and can't do a push-up. Yeah. Like, and you're like, oh, my arm doesn't feel very good after I'm throwing. It's like, hey, can you do a pull-up? No way. So it's like the functional capacity, just the general capacity of the average athlete in America, probably in the world right now, is at an all-time low. There's no PE, there's no gym access, working out, all of that, like all that stuff. And because of this massive rise of injuries, then it goes to the rehab, prehab, just do your I's, T's, and Y's. Oh, you have an arm care routine? Yeah, we do J-bands, or we do bands. I think that the approach, especially when we have our younger players, when I say young, I'm saying 12 to 18, like just their general capacity to do exercises is extremely low. And as we've implemented this, I think an athlete, one of our success stories, he's been in our systems since the beginning. And he was a guy that wasn't highly touted, he was going to be a monster. The only thing that was monstrous for him is work ethic. Like he was unbelievably dedicated to working out and getting better, getting stronger. His strength was his strength. And then his size came along, and all of a sudden he's 6'5", and we're like, oh man, things are really, could something potentially happen with the guy? And it did. He popped and started throwing extremely hard. But then, like I think you guys talked about earlier, we hand him off to another coach who's just, do what you need to do. Luckily for us, again, the work ethic and the dedication was there. But you take a highly talented arm and you put them into a high school program, all of a sudden they're going to get used, which they should, right? You need your best guys on the mound playing. And then this is right on the same time we started implementing arm care, and we really were making a push to be as proactive as possible. not feeling good, we would already establish this credibility with them and trust. Like, hey, you can come to us and tell us how your arm's actually feeling. Because again, hey, you want to throw today? Yeah, I feel good. Things aren't feeling good. Some of our testing with our force plates with armcare.com started giving us insights to like, hey, like you're fatigued and it makes sense. You basically, for your high school team to win, you have to throw 7 innings. You got to go basically less than 1 to 2 runs a game, and you got to strike out the side every single inning. So that expectation was there, and you were living up to that expectation. Yeah. You were hitting numbers on the mound that gave us potential for you to play at the next level. And we basically presented all this information to him. Your arm doesn't feel good, subjectively. The data also supports that objectively. Yeah, it makes sense your arm doesn't feel good. Here's what we would recommend. And that recommendation was you need to be down. You need to shut down, or you need to deload or just reduce the amount of throwing that you're doing. Luckily, the family listened to us, and then he basically walked away from his high school season from a pitching standpoint, was the worst person in the world because you're giving up on your team. And then several months later, ramped him back up. Arm care numbers, he is currently our highest arm care score. What's his arm care score? I think it's
128.
114 right
now. Yes.
You guys are crushing it. I really, because it's a very data-rich environment, but I think you guys communicate really well. Like even Erik, the emails you give me are so clearly written that I feel when I don't want to blow your head up, but when I get the email, I see it and I think this guy rereads his emails. I can tell just the few like email exchange. The word choice is good. It's short. You subscribe to the bluff method. Bottom line up front. It's like, man, it tells me a lot about the person when I receive a communication like that. It's a neat and tidy email, nice signature at the bottom. I looked at mine. I'm like, oh my gosh. I got to do something here. So for me, when we first started talking, we were talking about finding a partnership and, getting this kind of remote arm care lab put into your walls. It was an easy decision for me because I see the attention to detail that goes into everything. It is so, critical to a performance process. And even listening to you guys talk, the way you communicate is very strong. Like, look at this podcast. Look at all the people who are on it. I mean, that to me is what our company wants to be about, is the communication, the collaboration, and the attention to detail. So, I mean, I love, listening to you guys, and I'm so excited for where this is going to go, man.
No, yeah, and that's a great segue into our next topic. So we talked about upscaling just a little bit. Whoever wants to feel free, obviously, Erik, you would probably go first. Talk about how you see this upscale with armcare.com coming into fruition.
I'm going to let Nick kind of comment on how we're going to do it at KPI, but we have a lot of things on our umbrella, a lot of entities, and we're gonna roll this out on our field operations. We're going to roll this out under our team umbrellas and really have this permeate across our reach, which is pretty big, and just make sure that there is obviously KPI is going to be the hub, but there's going to be all our offshoots that we kind of oversee are going to be using this system.
Yeah. So first, I just want to say I love how passionate this conversation is getting. But for me specifically, the adolescent population is one that I think really, really lacks the care that they deserve, and it's to no fault of their own. But it kind of goes back to that strength versus length. Like, their body's always changing. They really do need to consistently be tested and have their strength developed. And in order to fix these arm injury problems, right, this epidemic, and this population we fortunately see a lot of. So when I saw this product, I said, man, we got to get this out to as many of our athletes as we can, not just this small population that we're using it for. Really everybody is deserving of this type of data and this type of knowledge of their own bodies, so that way they can be the best athlete they can be. So our goal right now going forward is to really apply it to as many of our athletes as we can, so that way we can dial in specifics for them and really get them to reach their highest potential as they age through and go through the development process with us.
For sure.
Yeah, I'd say every single athlete will get access to this. They will have their numbers, they will have their data, it will influence their training every single day. to the point where we will, if we need to hire more coaches to make sure that this is being implemented, we know this tool is that powerful. So every single athlete that comes in our doors, in their initial assessment, you will get arm care numbers. You will get it regularly to make sure that your arm care is dialed in, and then like I said, it's going to, like, we're going to get to the point where we'll probably start setting goals.
Yeah.
I don't really care about your bench and your deadlift. Like, I want your arm care numbers to go up. Where yes, we want your bench and deadlift to get better, but we need it to translate to things that we know are going to really influence the health piece.
Yeah.
And I'll just say, just from the guy that has the large credit card balance, like, there's nothing we won't do to keep the pitchers in this facility healthy. Nothing. Sure. So this is a step in that direction, a huge step. So.
Absolutely. So Ryan, Jordan, hearing us kind of talk about that, I'm going to flip it kind of to you guys. So how will we as KPI with this new partnership be able to help armcare.com program kind of reach out to more people?
I mean, Jordan can tackle it too from communication, but I mean, you guys, what we need are more visibility. I'm sure people, I'm guaranteed on LinkedIn, they're like, oh my God, this guy's putting out another video. Or, Jordan's got, his little video segments. And our message is really coming from us, right? We're trying to be the loudest people in the baseball environment. But what we need from people like you, the meticulousness, the dedication to player health, the go to the end length to ensure that you get the outcomes and the people who are paying for you are getting what they're paying for. We need more of the organic message to come from the baseball community, not from us. So, your use cases, your communication about it. I mean, we got a group, BDG in Canada, Baseball Development Group. We had a great time with them. I was there in Canada. I spent a ton of time with them, but the same thing, the messaging. You guys are starting to think about it. Like, how do we gamify having a strong arm? How do we make that important? Now, I know the company name that we have, there's a bad connotation with the word arm care because people think it's like injury prevention. But if we can flip this and we can change the model and the name to say, no, man, we are building the strongest arms in the game, and have that message propagated from all these people who are with us, who are supporting what we do, who care about their players. You guys are the ones that are amplifying the message. We just started. This is just a smoke signal. Jordan and I are just kind of rubbing, getting the flint stroke. It's a little bit of a smoke. We need the inferno. And I think that's what's going to come from people like you.
Awesome. Yeah, just to piggyback on that, just pushing that message of, Nick was talking about the adolescent group. That's where it needs to start. You guys have a lot bigger reach. Me and Ryan are kind of that, 17-ish through that older athlete is kind of the primary groups that we have those connections with. But those adolescents, that's where those damages are starting to occur because they're growing, their bodies are changing. And then you guys touched on pitch counts earlier. I've seen some pitch counts. I mean, I just had a group of high school kids that I work with playing a tournament, and it wasn't even off pitch counts. It was based on innings totals. It was if you threw 4 innings in a day, then you couldn't pitch tomorrow. That's insane to me. It's like we need to be monitoring the strength and how their bodies are responding to that, which gets into that post exam that we have is how is your body responding to 10 pitches, 20 pitches, 100 pitches? So not treating everybody the same. You guys obviously do a fantastic job of that individualization, but just that reach to those really young players that this is where the foundation begins. If you set those habits now with arm strength, nutrition, hydration, proper drill work, proper communication channels, they set that foundation when they're 10, 11, 12. By the time they're 16, 17, 18, they've set themselves up for that success long-term.
Absolutely. So last question from us. I really do, once again, appreciate the conversation, you guys. This has been absolutely fantastic. Ryan, kind of a loaded question like I asked you before. But for you guys, what is your ultimate vision for this program, and now the ultimate vision for us as a partnership?
I mean, I'll start first, and Jordan, you can go. So I look in this room, and it is my office in my home. I'm not showing you it because part of it's a disaster. It needs to be fixed. But we need to create a community. And I know people are talking about the program or the platform or the app or the education. What we need to build is a community. We need to encourage people to learn more than what they know. We need to break down mental models. We need people to share. We need people to contribute to our messaging, provide opportunities for us to do collaboration in sports science, to grow, this undertaking. I don't look at this. I did at the beginning. This is a slick app, easy to use thing. It's a monitoring tool, a training tool. There was a functional purpose to it, right? But in my vision, where I want to see this is an arm care family. People really focus on this stuff. Changing the model of spin rate, spin efficiency, RPM, stuff grades, all this stuff, and be focused on, strength velocity ratios, ERIR balances, max strength, relative strength, recovery analytics, post-throwing strength, people talking about things that actually matter to innings pitched and to command. So like that community-driven process, that's where I see us going. That's why we need you guys. We need people like you that are understanding the application, are running with this, learning more about our product than we can, because you're on the day with them. You're creating the structure for their training that's individualized, man. So to me, it's the community that I'm looking for in the future.
Absolutely. Jordan? Yeah, I mean, there's a lot that was said there. And, for me, it's about continuing the progress forward on understanding what doesn't work, learning from that, and moving on to the things that give you a better probability of success. And one of the things I want to touch on is, in this era of velocity, we almost put the cart ahead of the horse, even with the really young kids. I'm all for weighted balls. How many years did I run weighted ball programs with the end of 4 or 5 years, Ryan, something like that?
Yeah.
I mean, we got like 5 or 6 guys in the big leagues out of those groups because they threw harder. But if they did not throw harder, they would never play baseball again. Those are different aspects to where we're taking the 12-year-old, the 13-year-old. I mean, when I first started working at the high school that I'm at right now, I took over like last November. I came in and one of the guys is just ripping balls into a concrete wall. And I'm like, what do you got going on there? He's like, I don't know. I saw it on YouTube. So it's like this mindset of just like, I'm just going to throw things as hard as I can. It's like, well, by getting his arm stronger, by taking the horse and putting it in front of the cart so we can pull something, we were able to take that guy's numbers. We lowered his walks. We increased his strikeouts. We lowered his whip, and we increased his innings pitched. Because it's like, shoot, even if you throw 95 and you have a 27 K per 9, but you only throw 2 innings a year because you're always hurt, that's really not that important. We need guys that go to post. We need guys like this little device right here for the guys that if they can see it on a video. We want this to be in everyone's bag like it's a pair of sunglasses, like it's a glove. It takes up no space. It runs on a AAA battery. That's our long-term goal, is that everybody has this, and that, that family aspect that Ryan's talking about, that everyone has access to the app. Everybody's got a dynamometer. Everyone's got their training gear, because that's how important strength is. It's 100% going to make you throw harder if you get stronger. That's a hard thing to debate. You're going to pitch longer in games if you're more durable and you're strong. You have better endurance, better strength bases. You're going to throw more strikes. I mean, we have a Kaylee Shore. She's now over at UCF, was finding information on our arm primer, 45-second test, that the guys who had better arm primers had better K-zone percentages at the D1 level. So that's our thing, is like, I came from the biomechanics background, on the private side of things. Me and Ryan started diving into the strength aspects, and I'm now more like, it's 80% strength, 10% biomechanics, 10% mental emotional is kind of how I'm prioritizing that development. Because number one, if you get stronger, it's going to impact that mental emotional. No, very few people aren't more confident if they're stronger. Typically, you're going to be more confident. And if you're pushing those good numbers, that's going to give you a little more encouragement to get out there and pitch more, to do the things you need to do, to get over those hurdles. So, and again, I know I'm getting long-winded on it, but that's my whole thing, is that this is in everybody's hands, that we redefine what actual development looks like. Because just because you throw harder, if you can't get anyone out, it doesn't matter. The definition of a bad arm is one that can't go to post, so let's monitor your strength, or one that can't throw any strikes. So it's like, we need you going to post, we need you throwing strikes, we need you getting guys out, because at the end of the day, if you're not winning games, you're not going to be contributing to anything. So that's my rant on it. And at the end of it, it all gets tied together in a nice, pretty bow with how strong that throwing athlete's arm is.
Absolutely. Any last thoughts?
Good.
Thank you guys very much. I do appreciate Ryan and Jordan. Thank you guys for coming on. Thank you guys for listening, the viewers at home. Feel free to go to Kinetic Performance Institute, our YouTube. Please subscribe, like, comment on all our videos. This has been Talking Points with KPI, episode number 43. We will see you guys next time.